I probably shouldn't have let my boss come over. In hindsight, that much is blindingly obvious. But hindsight is a cruel luxury, a clear view from the wreckage of a decision you can never unmake. And now, my life is a mess I can't even begin to explain. My name is Sloane. I'm 32, and until last week, I lived a life that looked perfect on paper. A 9-year marriage to my husband, Owen, who's 36. 2 beautiful kids, Caleb, 8, and Avery, 5. A tidy suburban house in Ohio. It sounds solid, doesn't it? But paper is thin, and reality has weight. Our marriage hadn't been great for a while. Owen is a decent man. I have to say that. He works a steady, grueling job at a logistics warehouse, and he's a wonderful father. He'll build Lego towers with Caleb for hours and let Avery paint his fingernails pink without a word of complaint. But somewhere along the line, the spark had fizzled out, replaced by a comfortable, suffocating routine. It felt less like a marriage and more like a partnership in domestic management. I was married to a roommate who was kind enough to fold the laundry. He had no drive, no burning ambition. He was content, and his contentment felt like a cage to me. I work as an assistant at a boutique marketing firm. My boss, Julian, is the exact opposite of Owen. At 44, Julian is all sharp suits, booming laughter, and an energy that fills every room he enters. He's the kind of man people listen to, the kind people respect. And I'll admit it, I was drawn to that. His energy was infectious. It made you want to be better, faster, sharper. I suppose that's why I started mentioning him at home more than I should have. It wasn't a conscious comparison at first, but it became one. A few Fridays ago, after a successful client pitch, the team went out for celebratory drinks. Julian was in his element, holding court, telling stories that had everyone captivated. As the evening wound down, he suggested we all continue the celebration elsewhere. I declined, citing the usual I had to get home to Owen and the kids. "Why don't I just come with you?" Julian said, his eyes gleaming with a playful confidence. "I'll bring a good bottle of wine. We can toast to your contribution. You were the secret weapon today, Sloane." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I wanted to show him and, in a twisted way, myself that I had this stable, impressive home life, that I could have it all. It was a stupid, prideful impulse. When we walked through the door, the scene was exactly what I had feared. Owen was slouched on the couch in faded sweatpants and an old University of Toledo t-shirt, a bowl of popcorn balanced on his stomach. He was engrossed in some generic cop show. The kids were sitting on the floor, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of a tablet, playing Roblox. It wasn't the picture of domestic bliss I wanted to project. It was just real. "Hey babe," I said, my voice a little too bright. Julian followed me in, a bottle of expensive-looking red wine in his hand. "I told you about my boss, Julian, right? He's stopping by for a bit." Owen's eyes flickered from the TV screen. He gave Julian a cursory glance and mumbled, "Oh, okay." And is 7. Not, "Hey, nice to meet you." Not, "Welcome to our home." Just, "Oh." A wave of hot embarrassment washed over me before anything had even happened. Julian, ever the showman, filled the silence. He strode in like he owned the place, setting the wine bottle on the kitchen counter with a flourish. "Nice little setup you've got here, man," he said, his voice booming slightly in our quiet living room. "Real, cozy." Cozy. The word was definitely shade, a polite way of saying small and unremarkable. But Owen, bless his heart, either didn't catch it or didn't care. I went to the kitchen to find a corkscrew and some glasses. As I fumbled in a drawer, I heard Julian's smooth voice cut through the sound of the television. "So, what do you do, Owen?" "I'm over at the shipping center on Broad Street," Owen replied, his attention still mostly on his show. Julian's voice went up an octave, a practiced tone of feigned surprise. "Shipping center, huh? Man, that sounds like tough work. Bet it's not easy on the back." "It's fine," Owen muttered, his eyes not leaving the screen. And that's when it started. A low chuckle rumbled from Julian's chest. "Well," he said, drawing out the word, "I guess somebody's got to move the boxes, right?" I froze, corkscrew in hand. I knew that chuckle. It wasn't friendly. It was the condescending laugh of a man who believed he was fundamentally better than the person he was talking to. I peered around the edge of the kitchen doorway. I saw Owen's face change. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. He'd heard it too. He'd understood the insult perfectly. But he said nothing. He just sat there, absorbing it. And I, to my eternal shame, said nothing either. A part of me, the ugly, resentful part, thought, if it bothers him that much, he should say something himself. I'm not his mother. I don't have to fight his battles. We eventually moved to the dining table. The wine poured and glowing ruby in the low light. Julian was in his element, spinning tales of business trips to Milan and weekends in the Hamptons. I found myself laughing, caught up in the glamour of it all. Meanwhile, Owen sat opposite us, arms crossed over his chest, a thundercloud of a man forced to sit through a dinner party. I asked him twice if he was okay, and both times he just nodded, his face a stony mask. Then Julian, perhaps emboldened by the wine or Owen's silence, delivered another blow. He looked at me, a sly grin playing on his lips. Man, Sloane, he said, leaning forward conspiratorially. You ever think about what you'd do if you married a guy like me? Not saying you should, just saying, life might look a little different, huh? The laugh that escaped my lips was instantaneous. It was a reflex, an automatic response to his charisma, a sound I didn't even think about before it was out. And the second it happened, I knew it was a mistake. Not because of what Julian had said, but because Owen was staring directly at me. His eyes were locked on mine, cold and hard as granite. You think that's funny? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. My laughter died in my throat. Oh, come on, Owen. He's just joking, lighten up. You were laughing a little too hard for it to be just a joke, he shot back, his tone sharp as a razor. This man comes into my house, starts clowning me, and you sit there grinning like you're at a comedy show. I rolled my eyes, a defensive habit. Don't be so sensitive. You know how Julian Island, he jokes with everybody. All loser. Owen leaned forward, placing both hands flat on the table. Yeah, but he ain't in everybody's house, Sloane. He's in mine. The room went silent. Even Julian didn't have a comeback for that. But I couldn't let it lie. My pride wouldn't allow it. You're always like this, Owen. Always getting mad about something small. It's not that serious. I'm not going to babysit your feelings every time another man walks into the room. The words were out before I could stop them. They were cruel and dismissive, and I knew it. But I was already committed. I couldn't back down now. Owen let out a laugh, but it wasn't a real one. It was a tight, bitter sound of utter defeat. He stood up, shaking his head slowly. Yep, that's about right, Sloane. Always everybody else's fault but yours. He looked at me one last time. Enjoy your wine. He walked to the back door, and I heard it slam with a force that rattled the wine glasses on the table. Julian glanced at me, still sipping his drink as if he were watching a movie. Did I cross a line? He asked, the picture of casual innocence. I shook my head, my heart pounding with a strange mix of guilt and adrenaline. He's fine. He always gets like this when he feels challenged. But he wasn't fine. I knew that. And for some sick reason in that moment, I felt like I had won something. He wanted to act like a victim? Fine. I'd be the bad guy. I told myself I didn't care. I was wrong. The next morning, the bed was colder than usual. I rolled over, my hand instinctively reaching for Owen's side of the mattress, but all I felt was the flat, empty sheet. He must have left for work early, I thought, but a knot of unease tightened in my stomach. Owen wasn't the type to leave without a word. He'd at least send a text. Gone early, see you later. Something. I checked my phone. Nothing. No missed calls, no messages. He's mad, I told myself, pushing down the anxiety. He's being petty. I tried to shrug it off. I went about my morning routine in a haze of forced normalcy. The kids were up and demanding pancakes, their innocent chatter a stark contrast to the silence in my head. I got them fed and set them up with cartoons while I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling mindlessly through Instagram. Every few minutes, my eyes would dart to the back door, half expecting him to just stroll in, ready to pretend last night never happened. He didn't. By 11 a.m., the annoyance was curdling into real concern. I sent a text. Me? You good? No response. An hour later, I tried again. Me? Seriously? You just going to ignore me now? Still nothing. The concern quickly evaporated, replaced by a hot surge of indignation. So now I'm the bad guy? Over a stupid joke? I tossed my phone onto the couch and crossed my arms, staging my own silent protest. I didn't feel guilty. Not really. He's acting like a child, I thought. I'm not about to chase after him like some desperate housewife. But by 2 p.m., the silence was starting to get to me. He'd never stayed mad this long. Usually, after an argument, he'd retreat to his metaphorical cave for a few hours, then emerge, and we'd fall back into our routine. This felt different. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. "Owen, you're being ridiculous," I said into the phone, my voice sharper than I intended. "Don't start this whole silent treatment thing. We're too grown for that." I hung up, feeling a momentary sense of justification, but as the hours crept by, doubt began to poison my certainty. I replayed the night before in my head. Julian's smirks, my own careless laughter, the wounded look in Owen's eyes. Maybe I shouldn't have laughed. But then I heard my mother's voice in my head, a mantra from my childhood. "Don't you ever apologize for something you didn't do wrong." And I hadn't done anything wrong, had I? Julian told the joke. I just laughed. That's not a crime. By 5 p.m., I was genuinely irritated. I called again, straight to voicemail. "Owen, I'm not playing this game with you," I said, my voice louder now, as if raising the volume would force him to listen. "If you're trying to prove a point, you did it. I get it, you're mad. Congratulations. Now come home." I was pacing the living room, my jaw tight. I felt that old, familiar urge to call again and again, to bombard him with texts until I provoked a response. But I stopped myself. I hated when people did that to me. Instead, I called my younger sister, Paige. She's 29 but has the weary soul of a matriarch. I told her the whole story, expecting sympathy. What I got was laughter. "Girl, you know he's mad," she said, still giggling. "You know how men get when their pride's hurt. Ain't no telling where he is, but he'll be back once he cools off." "Cool off from what?" I snapped. "I didn't even do anything." Paige sighed heavily into the phone. "Sloane, you laughed at him. In front of another man. And not just any man, your boss. That's basically putting a man's pride in a blender and hitting pulse. You know that." I didn't laugh at him. I laughed at a joke. "Sloane," she said my name, like I was a toddler. "You know good and well that man wasn't joking. He was trying to son your husband in front of you, and you let him." Her words stuck to me, heavy and uncomfortable. But I wasn't about to admit she was right. Yeah, well, if Owen wasn't so insecure, he wouldn't care. Paige didn't argue. She just said, "Hey, let me know when he gets home." And then she hung up. By 9 p.m., my internal narrative had officially shifted from, "He's being petty," to, "Where the hell is he?" I started checking local news sites for traffic accidents. I even called his best friend, Daryl. "Nah, I ain't seen him today," Daryl said, his voice thick with sleep. "You want me to try calling him?" "No, I already did," I said quickly, trying to sound calm. "He's probably just blowing off steam." "Yeah, probably," Daryl mumbled. "But if he swings by, I'll tell him to check in." By 10 p.m., I was pacing for real. I texted again. "Me? Owen? It's getting late. I don't care if you're mad. Just let me know you're safe." Still nothing. I sat on the couch, staring at the clock, chewing on my thumbnail. This wasn't like him. No matter how angry he got, he would never just disappear, especially not with the kids in the house. He always put them first. I hated how quickly my mind jumped to the worst-case scenario. What if he's in a ditch? What if something happened? I hated this feeling, this complete and utter lack of control. At 11:30 p.m., I heard the sound of a key in the front door lock. I sat up straight, my heart hammering against my ribs. I wanted to be relieved, but the second I saw him walk in, the relief vanished. He wasn't in his work clothes. He was wearing jeans and a hoodie, and he smelled like a bar, that distinct scent of stale beer and fried food. "Where have you been?" I asked, standing up, my hands on my hips. He didn't answer. He walked right past me as if I weren't even there. "Owen, I'm talking to you," I said, stepping in front of him, blocking his path to the kitchen. "You leave the house all day, don't answer your phone, and now you're going to act like I'm invisible?" He glanced at me then, his eyes dull and exhausted. Didn't feel like talking. The dam of my carefully contained anxiety broke. "Well, you could have said that." I was worried about you. He snorted, a dry, humorless sound. You were worried. That's rich. Excuse me? I stepped closer. What's that supposed to mean? He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and shook his head, a gesture of profound weariness. You only worry when you're not in control, Sloane. This ain't about me. My mouth fell open. He grabbed a water bottle from the fridge and sat down at the kitchen table as if he'd lived 10 lifetimes in one day. Don't you dare try to flip this on me, I snapped, my voice rising. You just wanted to make me feel bad, and now you're playing the victim. Get over yourself. He opened the water bottle slowly, took a long sip, and leaned back in his chair. There was no argument in him, no fight. Just a vast, terrifying silence. You know what's crazy? He said, his voice quiet, his eyes staring at something far away. I used to think it was my job to protect you. Protect you from stress, from money problems, from whatever. But I didn't realize I'd have to protect myself from you. His words, spoken so calmly, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I stood there, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line, telling myself not to cry. But something about the way he said it, with such finality, wouldn't leave my head. You done? I asked, trying to sound tough. He nodded slowly, his eyes still on me. Yeah, he said. I'm done. He went to bed without another word. I sat on the couch for a long time, chewing on my nail again. He's just being dramatic, I told myself. He always gets like this. But for the first time in our 9 years of marriage, I didn't believe me. I didn't sleep that night. His words played on a loop in my head. I didn't realize I'd have to protect myself from you. At first, I dismissed them as melodrama, the wounded ramblings of a man whose ego had been bruised. But the more I thought about them, the more they angered me. Protect himself from me? I wasn't some monster. I was his wife. How could I possibly be the problem? Around dry, I was scrolling through Instagram, desperate for a distraction. A clip from some self-proclaimed relationship guru popped up on my feed. A man with a painfully earnest face was talking about how men suffer in silence because they're too proud to express their pain. Yeah, cry me a river, I thought, rolling my eyes. Men are always the victim, somehow. I scrolled past, but the idea lodged itself in my mind like a splinter. The next morning, Owen was gone before I woke up. No surprise there. But this time, I didn't wait for him to text. I texted him first. Me, you leaving without saying anything now? Real mature. I waited. No reply. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. I hated this feeling, this powerlessness. Usually, I could say something sharp or witty, and he would react. He would engage. But this time, he wasn't playing along. That's what was really bothering me, I realized. He wasn't playing my game anymore. The morning was a chaotic mess. Our 8-year-old Caleb kept asking me to help him tie his shoes. I kept telling him to wait, my patience worn tissue thin. Meanwhile, Avery, our 5-year-old, was on the verge of tears because she couldn't find her tablet. Avery, if you don't stop whining about that tablet, I am going to lose it. I snapped, shoving lunch bags into their backpacks with unnecessary force. Mom, Caleb still can't tie his shoes, Avery shot back, her tone mimicking the parental authority I was so clearly lacking. I know, Avery, I yelled, spinning around. My voice was ugly and shrill. You all act like I'm supposed to do everything at once. How about you help him if you're so smart? Avery went quiet, her eyes wide. Caleb just sat on the floor, looking up at me as if I were a stranger. I sighed, the anger deflating into a heavy guilt. I knelt down and tied his shoes, my fingers clumsy with irritation. I pulled the laces too tight, and he winced but didn't say a word. He never does, I thought, just like his father. And I hated myself for thinking it. The whole day was off. I could feel a weight in my chest, a sense of impending doom I couldn't shake. Around 1 p.m., a text finally came through. Owen, I'll be home later. Don't wait up. Don't wait up? Who says that to their wife? My jaw clenched. Before I could think, I was calling him. It rang twice before he answered. Don't wait up, I said, forgoing any greeting. What's that supposed to mean? It means don't wait up, Sloane, he said, His tone was so flat, so devoid of emotion, it made my blood boil. Okay, so you're just not coming home now? That's how we're doing this? Yep. That single, calm syllable sent me over the edge. You know what? If you're going to play this little I'm too cool to argue game, you can just stay wherever you are. All right, he said. Then he hung up. He hung up on me. I sat there, staring at my phone as if it had betrayed me. My heart was pounding, a frantic drum against my ribs. My fingers hovered over the call button, but I stopped myself. Don't give him the satisfaction. Instead, I called Paige again. Girl, what now? She said, her voice already tired. He's really trying to play this I'm done with you role, I ranted, pacing the living room. Telling me not to wait up, hanging up on me like he's unbothered. He's never done that before. Paige said, a nervous laugh in her voice. You might have pushed him too far this time, Sloane. Pushed him too far? Are you seriously taking his side right now? I barked. I'm not taking sides, Sloane. I'm just telling you what at Island. Men don't say stuff like, don't wait up, unless they're trying to prove a point. And it sounds like he's tired of you making everything into a joke. That's not even true, I argued, but the words felt hollow. Okay, Paige said slowly. But if it's not true, why are you so mad right now? That question hit harder than I wanted to admit. Whatever, I muttered, rubbing my forehead. He can act tough if he wants. I'm not about to beg him to come home. Alu. That night, I sat in the living room, the TV on low, pretending I didn't care that the other side of the couch was empty. I kept checking the time, checking my phone. By 10:30 p.m., I was done waiting. I sent a barrage of texts. Me? You really not coming home? Seriously? Me? I hope you're enjoying yourself wherever you are. Must be nice not having to deal with the kids all day. Me? See, this is why I don't feel bad about the other night. If you're going to act like this every time you get your feelings hurt, I'm not walking on eggshells for you. I waited for the little typing bubble to appear. Nothing. Fine. Be like that. I threw my phone on the cushion next to me. But my mind was racing. Where was he? With Daryl? At his mom's? Then, a thought I'd never allowed myself to have before slithered into my brain. What if he's with another woman? I shook my head, trying to dislodge the image. No, not Owen. He wasn't that type. But my brain didn't care. It conjured up little scenarios of him in a car, talking to some sympathetic woman who was nodding, understanding him in a way I apparently didn't. My jaw tightened. If that's what he wanted to do, then he could stay gone. Fueled by a potent cocktail of jealousy and rage, I picked up my phone and typed one last message. Me. Don't bother coming back tonight. I'm locking the door. I didn't mean it. Not really. But I knew it would hit him where it hurt. I wanted it to hurt. I stared at the screen for 10 solid minutes, waiting for a response. Come on. Say something. Say you're sorry. Say you're coming home. But the screen remained dark. By 1 a.m., I was pacing again. I hadn't locked the door. At 1:23 a.m., I heard his car pull into the driveway. I shot up from my seat, my body flooded with a grim, triumphant energy. I stood by the door, hands on my hips, ready to unleash the storm I'd been brewing all night. I heard his keys in the lock. The door swung open. I expected him to look guilty, or angry, or at least tired. He just looked calm. And that's what scared me. You finally done pouting? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He didn't answer right away. He set his keys on the small table by the door, took off his jacket, and looked at me as if I were just a piece of furniture in his house. I'm tired, Sloane, he said quietly. I was ready for a fight, but something in his tone stopped me cold. He didn't mean sleepy, he meant done. It was a deep, bone-deep weariness I had never heard from him before. Yeah, well, you're not the only one, I snapped back, recovering my footing. You think I'm over here living some dream life? He didn't even flinch. That's the thing, Sloane, he said, shaking his head slowly. I don't think you even know what you want. But I do now. My heart dropped. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't answer. He just walked past me, into our bedroom. I followed, my mind racing. From the top of the closet, he pulled down a black duffel bag, and he started packing. Packing. The sight of him methodically folding a pair of jeans and placing them into the duffel bag sent a jolt of pure, cold panic through me. This wasn't part of the script. This wasn't how the game was played. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. He continued packing, his movements deliberate. "A few shirts. Socks." His dop kit from the bathroom. "Where are you going, Owen?" My voice was louder now, laced with a tremor I couldn't control. "Where do you think you're going at 1 in the morning with a duffel bag like you're in some action movie?" I tried to laugh, but the sound was strangled and weak. He still didn't look at me. He just zipped the side pocket of the bag. "Owen." I said his name slower this time, trying to force him to see me. "Where are you going?" He finally looked up, and I saw it in his eyes. It was the look a man gives when he's finished talking, when all the decisions have been made. It's the look that comes right before everything changes forever. "You told me not to come back," he said, his voice flat. He zipped the main compartment of the bag shut. "So I'm not." My chest tightened. I felt my whole body tense up, bracing for a blow. "Boy, stop playing," I said, stepping forward. I lunged for the bag, but he yanked it back before my fingers could close around the strap. "You're not going anywhere." I could hear the shake in my own voice. "Don't let him see it, Sloane. Don't let him think he's winning." He walked past me, heading for the front door. My mind was scrambling, searching for the right words, the perfect insult, the one thing that would stop him in his tracks. "So you're just going to walk out on your family?" I yelled, following him down the hallway. "You're a whole-grown man, but you can't handle one argument without packing a bag?" He paused at the door and glanced back at me, his eyes calm but piercing. "I'm walking out on you, Sloane. I'm not walking out on my kids." I blinked, stunned. "Oh, so now you're father of the year? Since when?" I laughed bitterly. "Since you stopped being a wife," he fired back, his voice suddenly hard, "and started being my competition." He opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch. That one hit me. Harder than anything he had ever said. It stung in a way I wasn't prepared for. "You're just mad because I don't bow down to you like some little employee," I shouted, stepping halfway out the door into the cool night air. "You want some submissive little housewife who bites her tongue all day? Go ahead, go find her." The words were tumbling out of me now, a torrent of defensive rage. He turned around on the porch and looked me dead in the face. The faint glow of the street lamp cast half of his face in shadow. "I don't want a submissive wife, Sloane," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying more weight than any shout. "I just want a peaceful one." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. The words were a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. He walked down the 3 steps to the driveway and kept going toward his car. I stood there, heart pounding, watching him unlock the door in what felt like slow motion. I could have said something. I should have said something. "I'm sorry." 3 simple words. But my pride, that stubborn, ruinous thing, wouldn't let them pass my lips. "You'll be back," I said instead, folding my arms across my chest. My voice wasn't as loud this time. It sounded like I was trying to convince myself. "You'll be back." He didn't turn around. When I heard the engine start, my heart began to race even faster. A raw, primal panic I had never felt before seized me. This isn't like the other times. He's not coming back tonight. Still, I stood on that porch, arms crossed, a statue of false bravado. He pulled out of the driveway without a moment's hesitation. No pause, no second glance. When his taillights disappeared down the street, it hit me all at once. He's really gone. I stumbled back inside and slammed the door harder than I needed to, leaning my back against it as if to keep the world out. My breath came in ragged gasps. I could feel tears building, hot and sharp behind my eyes, but I sucked them in. "No, don't cry. You didn't do anything wrong." I sank onto the couch, my phone in my hand, waiting for the text he always sent after a fight. "I'm sorry," or "Can we talk?" But no message came. I refreshed the screen every 5 minutes, watching the time on the lock screen change. 1:42 a.m., 2:15 a.m., 2:45 a.m. Nothing. The silence in the house was absolute. And in that silence, I began to understand that the closed door behind me wasn't the one that mattered. The one that mattered was the one he had just walked through, and he had locked it from the other side. The next few days were a blur of surreal, suspended reality. The house was too quiet. Owen's absence was a physical presence, a void in every room. He didn't come home, and I didn't reach out. My pride had built a fortress around me, and I was its lonely queen. I figured he was waiting for me to apologize, just like I always did eventually. But this time, I refused. I wouldn't let him think he had all the power. By day 4, the silence was unbearable. I finally broke. Me. Are you done with your little break? The kids are asking where you are? I used the kids as a shield, a way to reach out without admitting defeat. He didn't answer. That's when the first real tendrils of fear began to creep through the walls of my fortress. Not because I missed him, not in the romantic way you're supposed to, but because I realized something I had never considered before. What if he's serious? I scrolled through his Facebook page, searching for clues. He hadn't posted anything, no dramatic, feeling blessed statuses, no cryptic new beginnings quotes, just silence. But then I saw it. He had changed his profile picture. It wasn't a photo of him, or the kids, or us. It was a plain, solid black square. No caption. No explanation. What does that even mean? I thought, a chill running down my spine. It felt like a digital memorial. For what? For us? Out of a desperate, morbid curiosity, I clicked on his relationship status. It still said, married to Sloane Thomas. I breathed a small, shaky sigh of relief. See? He was just being dramatic. If he were really serious, he would have changed that first. That fragile peace lasted for about 2 hours. That afternoon, Avery came into the kitchen holding my phone, which I'd left on the counter. "Mom, your phone is ringing," she said, handing it to me. The screen read, "Unknown number." "Hello?" I answered, distracted, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I folded a load of laundry. "Hi, is this Sloane Thomas?" a woman's voice asked. It was formal, but firm. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Angela from Bailey and Myers Law Firm," she said, her tone as smooth and cold as glass. "I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Owen Thomas regarding a pending legal matter." I stopped folding. My heart stopped too. The t-shirt in my hands fell to the floor. Wait, I said, gripping the phone tighter. "What legal matter?" "I'm reaching out to confirm your mailing address," she continued, not missing a beat, as if she were confirming a dental appointment. "We'll be sending over paperwork regarding the filing of a legal separation. Do you still reside at 1245 Maple Drive?" I swear I didn't breathe for 10 seconds. The world tilted on its axis. Legal separation. He didn't even tell me. He just did it. Yeah, I stammered, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. "Yeah, that's the address." "All right. You should be receiving that paperwork within 2 to 3 business days. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office directly." Click. The call ended. I just stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dead air. My eyes were wide, my mind a complete blank. In the living room, Caleb and Avery were laughing at something on the TV. Their innocent, happy sounds felt like they were coming from another planet. I wanted to tell them to be quiet, that the world was ending, but I couldn't even get the words out. My legs felt weak, and I slowly sat down at the kitchen table. For the first time in a long, long time, I realized I didn't have control. Not over Owen, not over my marriage, not over anything. I sat there, staring at nothing, waiting for my phone to buzz with a message from him. A text saying it was a mistake, a scare tactic, a joke. It never did. The paperwork arrived on a Tuesday, exactly 2 business days later, just as the woman from the law firm had promised. It came in a crisp, intimidating manila envelope. I saw the mail carrier push it through the slot in our front door, and it landed on the welcome mat with a soft thud that sounded like a gavel. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes, before I could bring myself to pick it up. My hands were trembling. Bailey and Myers Law Firm. The return address was printed in sharp, merciless black ink. Inside, the pages were filled with a language I didn't understand, phrases like irretrievable breakdown, equitable distribution of assets, and temporary custody agreement. It was the cold, bureaucratic vocabulary of a love that had died. He had already thought about everything. While I had been sitting in my fortress of pride, texting insults and waiting for him to surrender, he had been dismantling our life, brick by legal brick. There was a short, handwritten note clipped to the front page. Not from a lawyer, but from him. His handwriting, so familiar, looked alien on the sterile document. Sloan, it read. I'm sorry it came to this. I'll call in a few days to talk about the kids. They can stay with you for now. I've put money in the joint account to cover everything for the next month. I'll be staying at my mom's. Owen. No anger. No accusations. Just a quiet, devastating finality. He was sorry it came to this, not sorry for what he was doing. That night, after the kids were asleep, the silence of the house finally crushed me. It wasn't just an absence of sound anymore. It was a living entity, filled with the ghosts of 9 years of laughter, arguments, and shared moments. I walked through the rooms, touching the things he'd left behind. The worn-out armchair where he always watched TV. The coffee mug with the chipped rim that he used every morning. The framed photo on our nightstand from our honeymoon. 2 smiling kids who had no idea what was coming. My anger was gone, burned out, leaving behind only a hollow, aching void. My pride was a pile of ash at my feet. I finally picked up my phone, my fingers fumbling as I found his contact. I typed out a message. Me? I got the papers. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. A minute later, the typing bubble appeared, and then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a message came through. Owen. Okay. Just that. Okay. Not. Are you all right? Not. We need to talk. The finality of it was absolute. I finally understood. This wasn't a game to be won. It was a life that had been lost. I started to type again, the words I should have said days ago, the words that might have changed everything. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please come home. But I deleted them. It was too late. You can't apologize to a closed door. You can't ask for forgiveness from a man who has already left, not just the house but the marriage. The man who had once promised to protect me from the world now needed protection from me, and he had finally found it. I dropped the phone, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I cried. Not the angry, frustrated tears of a woman who wasn't getting her way, but the deep, ragged sobs of someone who had just realized she had taken a beautiful, fragile thing, a family, a partnership, a quiet love, and smashed it to pieces with her own 2 hands, all because she couldn't bear the thought of being wrong. All because she had forgotten that in a marriage, you don't win against your partner. You only win together or you both lose.